Thank you very much. As all of you know that Bhante Dhammasiri was so lucky. Before he passed away and after he was sick, he got Bhante Maniratana to take care of him. So he was so lucky his last age. And also he was so lucky after he was passed away also, because Sri Lanka Ramaya Buddhist Temple agreed to held his wake in Sri Lanka Ramaya Buddhist Temple. So Bhante Dhammasiri is a so lucky monk. So at this moment, without delay, I would like to invite Sister Sylvia Bay for her eulogy. As all of you know that Sister Sylvia Bay is a famous Dhamma speaker in Singapore as well as overseas. So please, Sister Sylvia Bay, come and give your eulogy.
Good morning, Bhantes, brothers and sisters of the Dhamma. It's not very long eulogy. I'll try my best. Bhante Dhammasiri was one of the most senior Theravadan monks in Singapore and had been here for 30 years. Yet, not many in the Buddhist community knows him. That's because he was modest, humble, and had kept a low profile by choice. Bhante led a simple, contented life with few needs and fewer wants. Bhante was happiest writing his books. He was a prolific writer. While in Singapore, he had published at least 4 books, including an over 600-page mammoth entitled The Descriptive Analysis of Numerical Terms, a book that has been mentioned twice already. He also wrote a much smaller guidebook called Fascinating Singapore. It had photos, short description of tourist sites of his adopted home. Bhante's writing and love for Dhamma propagation became the foundational glue of our relationship that stretches over 25 years. When Dr. Ng and I first met Bhante in 1994, we were introduced by the late Venerable Dr. Patigama Nyanarama, principal of the Buddhist Pali College. I was driving them somewhere. I have forgotten the destination, but I never forgot that encounter. Bhante was then a 58-year-old strapping young man of 58-year-old, with a crooked grin and a gentle smile. He was friendly, easygoing, full of warmth and kindness, and we all got on famously. Thereafter, Bhante would turn to me for help to proofread his books, to rewrite his sentences sometime, to make them more user-friendly, and to teach him how to use Microsoft Word, and sometimes to fix his second-hand computer glitches, even though I was only marginally better. The first few years after we became friends, Dr. Ng and I would visit him on the second day of the Chinese New Year and offer dana. He was quite new in Singapore then and had few devotees. Of course, in subsequent years, Bhante had many more supporters and was well cared for. But in those early years, Dr. Ng and I spent hours learning from Bhante meaning of Pali words and listening to Buddhist stories. Bhante was an exemplary Sangha who had upheld the Dhamma Vinaya in both letter and in essence. In the Karaniya Metta Sutta, Buddha gave a list of adjectives describing what he would consider the consummate practitioner. Let me read the words to you. Able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Does this sound familiar? For those of us who know Bhante, wouldn't you say that they describe Bhante to the teeth? Bhante was so humble, he never treated us as devotees or followers. Dr. Ng and I were just young friends who trailed after him in Dhamma scholastic pursuits. Bhante was generous in sharing his extensive Dhamma knowledge. Bhante was my walking Wikipedia. Dr. Ng and I can be quite particular about historical facts and Pali words. We would ask obscure things. I used to call Bhante to do fact-checking on Pali words and Buddhist personalities, and he would oblige, taking the trouble to do the research for us. Bhante was deeply compassionate and would always answer any call for help. In February 2006, he came to my house one late evening to administer last rites to my dying father. We had caught Bhante at the very last minute, like, Bhante, can you come down within the hour? And he dropped everything and obliged. No questions asked. My father passed on in the wee hours of the next morning, a happy man who had seen his beloved Sangha. My family and I will always be grateful for that simple act of chaga, generosity, and karuna, compassion. I've spoken about Bhante's metta and karuna. Now I will share a little story about his mudita. I mentioned earlier that Bhante was happiest writing his books. He wanted me to write too. He was always encouraging me to write. When I finally did, he was absolutely delighted. My first book, Between the Lines on the Life of the Buddha, was published in 2014. When the books were delivered to him a little while later, he said, "Why only 5 books?" And yes, he wanted more. He made it a point to read the book, and then he called me back within days to give me feedback on Pali words. I could tell that he had enjoyed the book, which was a relief for me. With a twinkle in his eyes, he teasingly declared that he was still the world's best author, and I'm number 2. In his last days, Bhante was frail and in considerable discomfort. He had to struggle so hard just to breathe. It was hard watching. But he remained stoic and cheerful. And he always looked happy when I visited, and he would greet me with a grin and a wave. Easier than talking. Whenever I expressed concern about his failing health, Bhante would reply along the line of, "When it is time, it is time." He was ready to go. He had long accepted that it is in the nature of the rupa to fall ill and to fall apart. Bhante was upeka. His body had caused so much suffering, but his mind was at peace. During my last visit on the afternoon of 4th June, Bhante was alert. He could no longer talk, but his eyes were clear, and he recognized me. His metta still shone through, brilliant and bright, beautiful. Bhante had no fear. He did not struggle. His demeanor was serene, and he could still smile, just a little. I believe it was the smile of one who knew that his life was ending, and that he was at peace with that. Bhante was the epitome of a Dhamma practitioner to the end. Thank you, Bhante, for being in my life, for being my teacher, and for inspiring all of us by the way you led your life. May Bhante always remain in the Dhamma as long as life lasts. Yawa Nibbana.